Cold beer here. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Cold Beer here. I'm Matthew Jouer. I'm here with Tilly. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. Drinking a great actual down there in Tampa beer.
All right.
Drinking
Old Hidden
some
Springs.
Hidden Springs. Out of the improper glass,
Out of
but I'm just
out of a boot.
a very small boot, but a boot nonetheless.
Yeah. I'm currently hydrating prior to imbibing on some of our beers for later. You beer drinkers out there, got to make sure you drink water. A lot of it. And yes, I know that the majority of beer is water, but that doesn't work. You need the water also.
You can't just hydrate with a 3.9% ABV American light lager in between your more intense and more alcoholic beers. It just doesn't work like that. They are all doing the same thing to you.
No. Certainly doesn't. Certainly doesn't. What's happening, man? I last time since we talked last, I went to Mexico. I was at a gigantic resort and all they served was one style of Dos Equis. Not cool. But I was certainly able to find some Modelo when I was down there, Especial. And they actually had a couple breweries. There was an American style craft brewery right there in Playa del Carmen.
Huh.
It was very cool.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Was it did
I had
you get a chance to go in there? Did you get a chance to talk to him? Like, was it a American, or was it like a repatriated American or whatever that was living in
um
Mexico, or was it just someone from
yeah,
Mexico
don't
that
know that.
enjoyed the
I think
style of
it,
beer?
I think they were Mexicans. That everyone there was, and
U.S.
I didn't.
style of beer. I know Mexico
But
is in the Americas.
I
Don't
think
get
it
at me.
was. I mean, there's a lot of Mexicans that have American um, family and connections. So I'm sure that they've got the vibe because yeah, it was all American style beers. I mean, hazy IPA, American Pale Ale. So it was cool. I don't think that where I was where they did the production, but I made sure I was like, this is your beer. Like you guys make this, and they're like, yeah. We have a brewery, and
Awesome.
all this is ours. So that was
That's
cool.
cool. That's super cool. I remember I went on a cruise with a friend, and we had a couple stops, and one of them was in the Cayman Islands, and we went to a brewery there, and I think it was Cayman Island Brewing Company or something like that. And uh, how we went there, and then like a off the cruise ship group of people came, and they were doing like a little tour thing around that they booked themselves, and we ended up hopping aboard, and just randomly the guy that was driving the bus, Ralph, was from Live Oak, right up the road from here.
Nice.
And I was like, so I was like, interesting. It's just small world type of stuff. But yeah, one of the things I love about traveling now, no matter where you go, is that the craft beer kind of industry has taken root in so many countries. And there's people trying all sorts of things that are just, it's cool. It's cool to see, especially if you love
Yeah.
beer. Like clearly, I love beer. So it's always wonderful to see how things are expanding here and abroad. But
Yeah, and how they in some cases are accepting American styles too.
mhm.
In
And definitely it helps when they're in areas where they get a lot of American tourists, because I'm sure
Of course.
they make a lot of bank off that. But I'm sure there's some people getting converted to American style beers in the process, and I'm all about it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
but personally for me, like I also went on a vacation, nowhere nearly as exciting, but we went to Disney this past weekend, and it was hot and not
Yep.
as crowded as I'm used to for Disney, but it was a good weekend.
That's okay, man.
Everyone
And
gets
they
a
got
little bit of a break.
were you in Epcot or at where were you?
So day one on Friday, I took off the day of work on Friday, and we headed down. We went to Magic Kingdom. Pretty much did everything we wanted. Um, and then we went to Animal Kingdom Saturday, and then yesterday, Sunday, we went to Epcot, and all of it was a lot of fun. We hadn't been there, and obviously since the pandemic started, so it had been
Yep.
I don't know, 14 months or something like that. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Was the craft beer selection at Epcot up to par?
It's always decently okay, but
Yeah.
I have to weigh the worth of some of the drinks versus like 10 and a half, $11 for
Yeah.
a glass of it. And usually I'm like, I get one in and I'm like, okay, I'm good with that now. But Epcot's always good on the food and drink scene. If you're not from Florida and you've never been, you should check it out. And if you are from Florida and you haven't gone to Epcot because it's not the most entertaining of the theme parks, you should definitely check it out. It's a lot more fun as a grown up than it ever was for me as a child.
Well, yeah, because you can drink there.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can drink and you can
Disney
eat some really good food. I mean, you
Magic
can get
Kingdom is
Mexican
such a
street corn there just off of a little
so
cart. It's good.
Magic Kingdom is such a ripoff, and mainly because you can only get beer at after 4 p.m. in like two of those restaurants. It's just odd, and it's not like anybody would ever have enough time to get bombed at Magic Kingdom with the lines. But a dad and a mom, they have the right to have a freaking beer when they're running their kids around that godforsaken place.
It's a lot there. So, but I'm glad. I enjoy. Like I always tell people is like I enjoy vacations. I enjoy them a lot. But there's a certain point in the vacation where you're just like, I just wish I was home. I wish I was sleeping in my own bed. And I feel like
That's right.
for like theme parks, when you go on like a Disney weekend, like for me, that comes a little bit sooner on those. And then when I'm up in the mountains, it takes a little bit longer. If I'm like staying at a cabin or I'm on the beach and just
Yeah.
kind of like relaxing, it takes a little bit longer for that moment to hit me. But there's always this moment in your vacation where you're like, all right, that was fun. I'm ready to
Right.
go sleep now in my own
And
bed.
if you don't, then that's when people just end up moving.
Yeah.
That's how Huss Hunters International happened. People
Yes.
were like, why don't we live here?
Yep.
That's what we did that's what we did in Florida. I mean, we've been coming here since I was little and lived here since I was little, but spend enough time in the winter and you're just like, what am I doing?
I've
This
always
makes no
thought
sense.
I've always thought the jokes about house hunters were pretty funny, where they're like, so I work at an artisan coffee shop for 12 hours a week, and I make paper mache sculptures for children's birthday parties. Our budget for our house is $675,000. And you're like, wait a minute, where can I get paid this much to
Yeah.
be able to afford this much house?
There's a lot of people out there with family money, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people out there. Because the big thing for that, though, down payments. Like, who the hell has $150,000 for a down payment?
True.
But
All right. Well, so I'm just gonna go along. Obviously the draft has just recently happened, although this episode may come out about a week after the draft, but you're gonna have to deal. We have a little bit of a delay right now because we wanted to build up some back stock of episodes. At some point we'll catch up and I'll be editing on the fly as we go, but you're gonna have to deal with it until now. But who are you a fan of, Matt? Are you a Tampa fan?
well, yeah, I'm a Tampa fan because I have a business that people come to, and we have TVs with games on. So I'm definitely a Bucks fan. I'm a Vikings fan because I'm from Minnesota and have always cheered for the Vikings. I'm also most recently a Browns fan because one of my good buddies I played ball with in college is now on staff with the Browns. So um, certainly hope they do well. They got a fun squad, and
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that gives me a reason to go to Cleveland in the fall. So that's going to be awesome. And yeah. So I'll bounce around a little bit.
Yeah. I don't personally. I used to back in the 90s when I was growing up. I fell into the Cowboys fandom, and I was a fan during the Troy Aikman and Emmett Smith years, especially
Oh, yeah.
living in Gainesville, Florida, and knowing that Emmett was from the University of Florida definitely played a big part in that. But at a certain point, I kind of fell off. Now a couple teams I like to cheer for the state of Florida teams. since I don't have my own personal team, I like them to do well. So just in general, but my wife's a Broncos fan living in Denver, so I cheer them along. And I also am a fan of the Cleveland Browns ever since they drafted Baker Mayfield, because I think he's hilarious, and I think he's got a lot of swagger, and I enjoy watching him play. And he had a pretty good year last year, and they've got a pretty good squad put together. It'll be very interesting to see if the Browns can make it to like conference title game or further.
Yeah.
That'll be very interesting to watch, but also a little bit strange just because of it's the Browns. So, like it's the Browns. Like,
well, like anything
it
else,
was like watching the Cavaliers win the NBA Finals a few years ago. It's like, what?
Like anything else, they got to stay healthy. That's just really the name of the game.
I mean, that's every team, really.
At the quarterback position, and then at the, for them, the defensive line position, they can be dominant there, but they had to add some parts. They gave a bunch of money, undrafted free agent money, at least by those standards, to Florida State defensive tackle, and they drafted, I think, one or two other defensive linemen. Yeah. So I look forward to watching them, especially with now that they kind of have their mode and their mojo going, and then they get Odell Beckham Jr. back healthy.
It kind of hit stride kind of towards the end of the year where they were really clicking.
And Odell was already out, and you got a lot of crap for them. Oh, they're better without him. It's like, get out of here. They just got their program together, and unfortunately he was hurt. He could really add something to him. I'm looking forward to watch that. I too was a Cowboys fan growing up. Actually we have a good family friend who was a trainer for the Cowboys, and so when I was really little, we were at his house, and he had this, like, it was like a dining room, and all it was a Dallas Cowboys shrine. And so he took me into this room, and it was just like jerseys and helmets and pictures of teams and players. And like, I was just like, oh my God. And that was actually before the Cowboys were good. So like when Danny White was a quarterback, and I can't even remember the old coach's name now. That's embarrassing. Hall of Famer. Always wore the
Tom
suit
Landry?
and the hat. Yeah, Tom Landry. Man, they were terrible. I mean, obviously they had, when they took Troy Aikman, I can't remember if they were top 5 picks, and then the next year when they took Emmett,
they were up there as well again.
Up there, and then they got Michael Irvin too. So as a Florida State fan, I had watched Emmett and Irvin, for 3-4 years. So I knew those guys too. And then I was like, oh dang, my team got them. And then they were off to the races. And then of course Jimmy Johnson. I mean, it was all the people that I used to hate. And then but the thing was, as a kid,
once they're on your team, you're like,
well, and it's cool because you know them. Like, you know who they are, and you're like, oh, well, all right, fine. Yeah,
that's the toughest part.
I'm looking forward to fans in the stadiums.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to Gator football. Got my tickets already ordered, paid for, my season tickets. I renewed them. Didn't renew them last year, but they gave it kind of a free pass so that I kept my seats, but I didn't have to renew them. Renewed those, got some orders in for, Florida, Georgia, and Jacksonville, and a couple away games. Actually put in a request to come down there to watch the USF game down there. So that happens.
Florida plays USF?
Yep. Down in
Tampa. Oh, that's cool.
I think at
Ray J.
Ray J, yeah.
It's too bad. They need to get a stadium on campus.
They should, but if they did, we wouldn't play them there anyway. So being perfectly honest,
as a public school, all the lobbyists for the and big time donors that are Congress people for Florida State, Miami won't let it happen anyway, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to find space on a campus. obviously UCF found space, but they had the benefit of just having like a massive amount of space to begin with. I have no idea what the structure of the property is for USF. I'm sure
they got room. Yeah, they got plenty of room.
Something out, but then you got to figure out the financing, you know.
Yeah.
And cost benefit analysis and figure out if it's really worth it, you know.
It'd be a lot of fun. Personally, they either shouldn't have football or they should have a stadium on campus. Like, I don't think it does the program any good the way that it's going, playing in Raymond James in front of nobody. And they still have had some great years, you know, where they've really come onto the scene. And
I can assure you there'll be a pretty good crowd there in early September when Florida comes down there to visit, because there's obviously, I'm sure you're aware, plenty of Florida Gator fans just in the area, and even just from around the state, just a couple hours for most places to get there.
Oh, so yeah, it'll be miserable for those USF kids to know that's a home game. I mean, in the stadium, it probably won't be full, but it'll be 3/4 full, and it'll be 2/3 Gator fans.
And it'll all be packed down anyway. So at that point, anyway. But yeah, it'll be fun. Maybe we should record an episode. One of those. Yeah, the
brewery's just down there, 1.9 miles from Raymond James.
Yeah,
perfect.
We can make it happen. Yeah, I'll come down there. I'm thinking about taking off that Friday. Maybe drive down Thursday evening after work. Stay Friday, Saturday. Drive back Sunday. We can do a recording at one of those times. It'll be fun. All right, so moving on a little bit. I was looking at some information I thought was kind of interesting. I find it interesting. And it was about the states who produced the most craft beer in 2020. And did it both in terms of just total number of barrels and also in barrels brewed per capita. And as you can guess, you know, the larger population states may brew the most barrels, but per capita may fall a little bit further down, which mathematically, scientifically, statistically makes the most sense. But the states that brewed the most were California, who brewed almost 3.4 million barrels of craft beer. And obviously, when you're talking barrels of beer, the big guys probably, you know, they obviously kill these numbers. But when you're talking craft beer, it can be impressive nonetheless. Pennsylvania, almost 3.2 million. Ohio and New York, both around 1.2. Florida's at around 1.2, and then just over 1 million being Texas, and that's kind of like the top six, the big six, as it were. And then you can, if you're a beer lover, you can probably go down from there and figure out that Oregon, Colorado, you know, North Carolina, all these states are up there.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. If you've ever gone into a Washington, like if you've ever gone into a beer store and looked at beer, you could probably figure out the top states just based on where you see the most beers from. Even in Gainesville, Florida, I can go into my local beer store and figure it out. But the interesting thing about it is that per capita, those states are nowhere near the top of it, the list. Because then you get to Vermont, which per capita, it's the number of gallons per adult, 21 and up adult that lives in that state. Vermont has 22.3, Maine 9.2, Pennsylvania 10.1, which may be skewed a little bit based on, as we were discussing, Yuengling being considered a craft beer and in kind of in that realm, which I love Yuengling, by the way. There's no criticism here, but it skews balance a little bit. I mean,
yeah, they're gigantic.
And Boston Beer Company also skews it a little bit. They're considered craft, but they're so far beyond like the scopes of most craft beer that it's a little bit, mind-boggling. But even them, being Massachusetts, they're only at 3.1 gallons. So, but it's a heavily populated state with probably not as much market penetration. But Alaska at 10 gallons per 21 and up adult.
Yeah.
I have no idea how far you have to drive to get to any of these breweries that are there, or snowmobile or dog sled too, depending on the time of the year. But it's kind of definitely an interesting thing. And then you get to the expected states like Colorado. You'd expect them to have a pretty good per capita, and they do at 6.8. So,
well, I mean, the thing about Alaska is that you have 49th state, Anchorage, Alaskan Brewing Company. Like, you have a couple pretty big ones, and they got to be big mostly. Maybe in Anchorage there could be some small ones.
If you get it down here, if you get it in Florida, because I've definitely had Anchorage.
Right. So you got to be big
here. You've got to be big enough. If you're going to be distributing, I don't know if there's anywhere I'm pretty sure there's nowhere in the United States that you can go that's further from like Anchorage down to Gainesville, other than if you're going down into like the panhandle of Texas.
Yeah.
Or down obviously in the ass end of Miami Keys area, which I'm pretty sure you get Anchorage beer down there too. So yeah, you got to be big enough to support that.
They're and then of course not a whole lot of folks in Alaska. What's their electoral college number? Do you know?
Is it like 2 or 3?
It's not a lot.
I feel like 2 is the least amount that you could get, but let's see. I can find this information for us real quick. Maybe. Well, I didn't find it right away, so.
No. Yeah, there's, it's obviously 2020 it's hard to see, kind of the difference. There's some other cool studies out there that talk about the percent of gain and loss of market shares and different things, but it's pretty big everywhere. We're really entering a sort of golden era of craft beer. If the pandemic isn't going to kill folks like us off, then there's a whole bunch of breweries out there that are going to make it and that are going to be stronger as a result. And these per capita numbers, they tell you a pretty cool picture too, because you got Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, obviously, but and Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Some of these places all are in the top. They're in the top 15 for states, and they aren't very populated states either. Michigan's got great craft beer. We know that. Wisconsin also is really a beer state, but
it kind
there's still a lot of room for growth too.
Yeah, it kind of paints the picture that a lot of these states, like you look at Texas has 1.6, and Mississippi has only 0.3 gallons per 21 and up. Like even like the smaller states, like there's room for growth here. Alabama 0.7, Georgia 2, Florida 2.3. I mean, Florida has a lot larger population than Georgia, but only produces slightly more beer per 21 and up adult, and clearly there's a lot more room for more breweries. So what I'm saying as a fan of drinking beer, if you're thinking about opening a brewery and you're in the state of Florida, do it. Because I'll go out of my way and I'll drink it, and you'll find people in your local area that want to drink it, and I think you should definitely do it. There's still room in the market for it. Now,
what it tells you.
Go ahead.
What these numbers tell you is that on one hand, there's there's a lot of room for growth, but that growth is going to continue to need to be more and more strategic as the demand increases basically everywhere. The majority of these breweries that we've seen are focused and centered in urban areas, around larger populated areas, but people everywhere are starting to like and drink craft beer. I think that there's going to be and should be a lot of opportunity for small breweries and tap rooms in smaller
More
towns. You're
rural,
starting to
more
see
smaller
that a little
towns.
bit. You're
Hmm.
it's you got, there's a really neat little town out here called Dade City, and it is like the quintessential small town downtown. It's just outside of Wesley Chapel area, and when you get there, you're like, oh God, yeah, this is a small town. And they just got their first brewery, and I promise you, it won't be the last, because it's a cute town. People like to be there, like to go there, and that's the kind of stuff all over the country has tons of those, and
Yeah.
and people will go. You like you just said, I'll go there, and
Yeah.
people will,
I mean,
and
I
I
look them
think they
up.
will.
I look up in like any small town I'm in, and I love when I'm like swinging through a smaller town area and I'm like just Google mapping brewery.
Yeah,
And I find something, I always want to stop. Even if I can't stop for very long, I just stop and grab a growler, or if they have any packaged stuff, I buy it. But yeah, I mean, just in um, Keystone Heights, which is just up the road from where I live. I live in Melrose. There's a place called Brooklyn Boys. It's a pizza place, but they also have, you know, 12 to 20 taps, something like that. And they have craft beer on and they do well. And I've long thought that just at the intersection, there's a place called Chipini's. I was like, if that they ever sell this convenience store Chipini's, which they're looking to, and someone ever builds a brewery there, and don't have to do super exotic beers or anything, just like a nice local place with locally made beer, um, it would kill it there because they already do live music there. People are already used to stopping there, and going to food trucks and stuff. So be the perfect spot. And I feel like a community even as small as Keystone Heights in Melrose, Florida, would support a local brewery if one was there, or
yeah,
anywhere really, not necessarily just tied into that location, but people love to support their local areas, especially like hangout spots that breweries are. And they're just a good social environment. You go there, you drink some beer, you hang out, live music or food or whatever is around, and it's enjoyable. So yeah, I definitely agree. Um, like clearly, you can go to some places that may be a little bit more saturated, and we kind of talked about this in our first couple episodes about beer saturation, craft beer saturation, and just depending on what the what's available in the area. You don't want to go to an overcrowded area that already has a bunch of well-established breweries, but you know, there's a lot of flexibility in that.
yeah. There's not a lot of room for growth on shelves in stores.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's one of the places where real estate's scarce. But
Yeah,
everywhere else, there's room to be strategic about it, and there's enough people out there. All these numbers tell you is that there's plenty of room for growth, and that if a state like Montana is going to have these kinds of numbers, then certainly a state like Kansas can, and so hopefully that means good things for the future of the business. It's still a very, very young industry by general standards, and just took a real kick in the balls here the
yeah.
last year, and so we'll begin to see things kind of change direction and ebb and flow, and hopefully there'll continue to be more and more breweries.
I think there will. I think we haven't
Good
reached.
breweries, quality liquid. We need breweries that make quality liquid.
I mean, you got to have a certain number of breweries just open up in order to get a certain number of that number to be quality. Because not everything that opens is going to be quality. So the more quantity you can get opened up, the more you'll be able to filter out that upper echelon type of stuff and really find the quality.
It's simple math problem.
Basic maths. All right. So our next segment is Hold My Beer, and Matt's going to take it away here.
Boy, we got a good one. Hold My Beer. This caught my eye actually just earlier today. From Maryland, there was a crash. Ocean City, Maryland. There was a really bad car crash on the Route 90 bridge in Ocean City, which, according to the pictures, is it's crossing the bay, but it's probably 12 to 15 feet off the water, so it's not like a crazy skyway bridge. And after the crash, a vehicle was dangling over the guardrail. Really bad incident. And an infant was ejected from the vehicle. There was a vehicle that was like teetering on the wall, on the guard wall of the bridge, and an infant fell out into the freaking bay. And apparently this dude who was following, on the road, he gets out of his car immediately, sees it, and jumps into the bay and saves the baby. This guy probably wasn't drinking a beer in the car, but he
deserves beers.
Definitely had somebody hold his beer while he left the bridge and jumped into the water and saved this kid. Is unbelievable story. It really just gets me jacked up because, like, what an animal. The guy didn't think twice. How many people have you seen, other than folks maybe trying to kill themselves, or there's like some fun bridge that they're jumping off of? How many people are jumping off of highway bridges into waters, Yeah. And this guy, and he didn't have long. It wasn't like he was like, gosh, I'm not sure. Sees the baby, jumps into the water, saves the baby. Unbelievable, man. And
it's possible he didn't even see that it was a baby or anything. He just saw someone or something go off and saw long enough to be like, I'm gonna go get them.
Well, I got, that made me start thinking, was the baby had to have been in a car seat, right? I guess it didn't have to be, but it almost certainly should have been in a car seat.
If the baby survived that much, you would think the baby would have had to been in a car seat. Maybe I have to look it up, but
and so then
like it would have to be.
I don't know what else you'd have a baby in. I certainly know there are people who have royally screwed up the installing a baby seat into the car. And so that to me makes a lot more sense. Infant. So, the infant is like what we got, the carrying case.
Yeah, the one like rear facing.
Yes. So
kind of cocoon.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what he saw, because he saw a big
he saw enough
blob of plastic, but like he knew shit was a baby.
He saw enough. Man. That's all that matters.
So awesome. That's a
great beer story. Up to that guy, and I'll hold his beer next time he wants to go save a life.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I'll try to go save that life too, but I feel like he may be better suited for it because I'm very out of shape.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think that when I think about it, I can't think of something I would rather do less, but there's 100% chance that I'd do it. Right. If that's you and you're there, and you're like, oh my God, you have to do it.
If you have a chance to make a difference like that, just do it.
Yeah.
Even, say the worst thing happens and somehow it costs me my life, at least my family and my kids would see that I was trying to do something to help someone. And, there's not much more you can do than to try to help somebody.
Yeah, no, that's what we're supposed to do. So, we hear mostly the news stories we hear are about how the opposite happens, and lots of people hurting other people. But that's the thing that just jumped out at me, was like that was a hell of a risk, and a great result. Obviously helps the matter and the story, but what a crazy story, and good for him. I'll definitely send that guy a 4-pack if I can figure out who it is.
And I will
Maryland
say,
man.
yeah. I will say if you can track him down, I got some Hunapoo. I'll send him some Hunapoo as well. Just
Oh yeah,
got some for him.
up the ante, up the ante.
On that front, I'm also thinking about setting up a Hunapoo giveaway once we get to 500 followers. I think I may set up a giveaway for a vertical of Hunapoo for all those craft beer lovers out there. And non-craft beer lovers, if you follow us, you've had a chance to drink some of the most sought after beer out there as well. So
cool.
It's coming up soon. But we're gonna call it quits from here. I think we're gonna be moving to a 2-episode upload schedule from now on, although we're recording it all at once, but we're going to release them on 2 separate days with the tasting and the Florida Man or Hold My Beer or Weird Story section with the tasting. And then the other part where we just ramble on and talk about whatever pops into our heads. So.
Sounds great, dude. I
appreciate
appreciate it.
Great, Matt. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody, drink local beer and be nice to people. Talk to you soon.
Love y'all.